Hi there. In this video, I wanted to walk you through my projects in 2020. And I know my channel wasn't here for long because I started in the beginning of October, but I started sewing before I made this channel, so I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to show you my works before YouTube. So a funny thing is that I actually started sewing this year. I mean, I knew how to sew in 2019, but in 2019 I made this skirt. I think this is a 50s inspired skirt, but for some reason it doesn't look like that when you wear it. Maybe it would with the proper undergarments. But to be fair, I didn't make this entirely myself. Uh, on the skirt my mom taught me how to sew by machine and things like that, but a lot of things she did for me. For example, she hemmed the skirt and sewed in the pockets and the zippers, so I can't really say that I made it myself because, to be honest, what I did was sew the darts together, which, I mean, this was a lot of work because there are many darts in the skirt, but it's not entirely mine. But this was in 2019. My cat walked in. I hope he doesn't uh, touch the tripod because that would be unfortunate. But yes, in 2020 I started sewing pretty much when the schools were closed for the first time in Poland. I didn't have anything to do, so I decided to sew something entirely myself. And this is this dress. This is actually also the first thing that I sewed, like from a historical pattern, I guess you could say. But this dress is actually like 70s, 80s Poland because I made this using a book about sewing. It was how to sew for teenagers from like 1986 or 87. So I got my hands on this book and there was a dress like this in there and I decided to sew it. The funny thing about this dress is that it's not really wearable, to be honest. I don't know if you can hear the messenger, that's annoying. Okay, I don't know if it's not really wearable, to be honest, because the story of this dress is that I wanted to sew something entirely myself from the book, and my mom was like, you can sew a dress, you don't know how to do that, do a skirt or a blouse, definitely not a dress, you'll just waste fabric. So I was very determined on sewing a dress because when you go on my ego like that, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to be like, yeah, I definitely can sew a dress. I listen to you, I'll sew a skirt again. Sure, no, I'm going to sew the dress that I want to sew. So the only fabric I could sew this dress with was like few decades old fabric that was left uh, in the attic after my grandmother that died a long time ago. So this is also the reason that it's not really wearable, because this fabric is one of the most itchy fabric I think I experienced. I like the dress, but I'm not going to sacrifice my skin like that. But the first plan for this dress was that I'm going to take like any material and basically do like a mock-up. But I found these two materials that matched in color, and there was enough to make this dress using those two. Don't go on my clothes. Everything is going to be in fur when you sit there. No, please. This is Psotek, this is not Matka. I have two cats. Stop. Can you sit on the side? Can you not sit on my clothes? Maybe behind me, that would be nice. Please don't sit on my clothes. So I made this dress using those two fabrics, and it actually, I mean, you could wear this if not for the itchiness. You could wear this dress. And there is a lot of things I have learned making this, because not only this is the like second garment I even sewed, counting the skirt I already showed you, but I didn't do most of the things that I needed to do on this dress. I never sewed in sleeves before. Surprisingly, I don't think it was that bad, but it might be because those sleeves are actually giant. If you would see the pattern for this, those sleeves are probably bigger than the bodice itself. But because it's gathered pretty much all the way, maybe that's why I didn't have as much trouble with the sleeves, because if I did something wrong, you just can't see it because of the gathers. But actually, it was the first time I ever gathered fabric, so that's something. The first time I made buttonholes or sewed in buttons or did this, because there's a separate like placket for the buttons, so this is the first time I did that. This is the first time I made a collar, and this collar actually I had to, I mean, I drafted the skirt all by myself, but using basically following instructions of what to do that they gave me in the book. My second cat is looking at me through the... Why every time I do something song related, they just like, we're here, we're the stars of this film now. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm here and I look pretty, so show me to the camera. Okay, but going back to the dress, basically everything was a first for me with this dress. I actually broke my mother's sewing machine while doing the, what do you call it? What is it? It's not fringe. Okay, I'm not going to remember it right now. I'm not even going to try. But while sewing on this part, I broke my mother's machine and I had to do it by hand. Thankfully, she repaired it. But actually, because I broke my mother's machine, this is the reason why she bought me my own sewing machine for my 17th birthday. So I guess it turned out great for me, but it was stressful. After I made this dress, the next sewing project was actually not any clothing, but I helped my scout group make masks, because it was like the first boom where nobody had masks and everybody needed some, so that's what I was doing next. But I didn't really learn anything new doing that. And she's here. Hello, princess. I want to show you. So those two are here. Surprisingly, they didn't run away straight away, because sometimes they don't really like each other. I don't know why. I think they had a fight one time. They had a fight one time, and they couldn't even be in the same room for like a year. Cats really are like people. The drama here is just sometimes unbearable. But back back to my projects. The next thing I did was actually two things I did one after the other. I can't really remember which one I did first, but I did a waistcoat and a skirt using the Keystone guide. So I think I did the waistcoat first. I'm not sure, but they're like, I guess, a pack, so it doesn't really matter which I show you first. But I made this waistcoat first, which actually the skirt and this waistcoat you can see on my profile picture on my social media right now. So this was actually an elaborate project because not only I had to draft the pattern myself using the instructions, and comparing to like more modern patterns, drafting this is, I think this is 1896, if I remember this correctly, or something like that. And pattern from this time period are definitely more complicated than patterns from this time, because I mean, if you ever saw modern patterns in comparison to pretty much any other century, modern patterns are pretty straightforward. They're really basic shapes. So this was the first time I made anything from like before the 20th century. And this is the first time I did mock-ups and things like this. I think I did like 3 or 4 mock-ups for this waistcoat. It's still not perfect. I think I could have make the darts even smaller than I did, because it's a bit weirdly in the back. But also the lining is kind of weird. It's kind of just slapped on because this was my first time doing lining, and I made it too small at first, I think. So this is just weirdly, the seam allowance that I had in the lining, I just was like, okay, I guess we're moving everything to be bigger. So I mean, the lining is not great. For example, you can see, oh wait, you can see here machine scarring, because first I tried to sew it by machine, but I absolutely don't get the lining by machine, how you do this. So I sewed this by hand. But I'm pretty happy with this waistcoat actually, because it has this shape. You can see it on the photos. I'm not going to try it on right now because I am wearing a sweater and it would just probably look weird, but there are actually a lot of photos of there are photos of this waistcoat on my Instagram and my profile pictures. And don't go on the clothing. And the second part of of the set, I guess. Don't go on the clothing. Why do you always want to sleep on the clothing? Not now. No. You're not going to sleep on the clothing, not now. Okay, So I also made a skirt, and with the waistcoat I had enough materials and I actually had time to make it, so it's not this bad. But with the skirt there was a lot of things. I definitely rushed it, that's for sure. I also made it from those, by the way, those two are also made from like leftover fabric, but this time a better leftover fabric, because this was a nightmare. um, but because it was made from leftover fabric, I didn't have enough for a skirt that the length that I wanted to, and things like that. It is it's not the like original length of a walking skirt. It's a bit shorter. I made it a bit more modern, but because, gosh, because this was made from a leftover fabric, the hem is not actually level. You can't really see this when I'm wearing this skirt, because the shortest part of the skirt is actually the middle of the back, and there are gathers here on the back. So because of those gathers you can't really see that it's so short, but the difference between the center back and center front is huge. I don't know exactly how much, but I am actually right now fixing up the skirt, but I'm probably not going to level it either way, because I like the length that it is right now at the front, and it would be probably too short for my liking if I leveled it to the length that it is in the back. Gosh, I'm feeling this for a long time. I didn't thought that this would be such a long video. But this was easier for sure, but I definitely rushed it because I was sewing this skirt at the end of June this year, and I wanted to sew it all together for the end of the school year, because I wanted to wear it to the end of the year ceremony, because we had like a little one, because the pandemic in Poland wasn't that bad at the time, and because of this the hem is actually pretty crooked. I don't think I even pinned it in place, to be honest. That I definitely didn't baste it, but I think I I was sewing the hem and I was pinning the hem in place while I was sewing. This is the time when I was still pinning in the fabric in place in the wrong way, because I did it like in the line that you would sew, and not the other way that I do now. Also, I didn't have enough fabric for the waistband, so I made it from ribbon, and this is actually, I think it's actually historically accurate, but not only the fabric was left over, but the ribbon was also left over, and I had a lot of trouble sewing it in. And this is actually 2 straps of ribbon sewed together here, so now it's starting to fall apart. It's ripping on the top in a few places, so this is also why I am fixing this skirt currently, because I'm going to change the waistband again for a ribbon, but this time a wider one, so there won't be a seam at the top, so hopefully it will last a little bit longer. But it's again, and this skirt actually is in a lot of photos on my Instagram, so you can go watch it, see it if you want to. Another this is really long. Okay, another thing that I sewed is summer skirt, not skirt, a dress. Again from a leftover fabric after my grandmother. This is actually, gingham fabric. I think originally this fabric was some kind of curtains because my mom and my uncles and my dad actually remember when this fabric was curtains, and they make fun of this dress. But I actually drafted the whole thing myself. Uh, there wasn't any like inspiration for this. I just have the idea in my head, and I actually read to draft rather quickly because everything that I want to do make is either historical or I just come up with this myself. And in the like old Polish books from the communistic time, because I have a few of those, they actually explain a lot of about drafting your own patterns. So the entire thing I drafted myself. Uh, Again, I wanted the skirt to be even fuller, but leftover fabric and stuff. And if you watch my corset video, I made a hole in it, and I said that I always do that. Well, I don't think I have a hole in any project, different project that I showed on this channel, but there are definitely a few small holes in this one. I like this dress, but I think that definitely is wrong with it is this top part, because it doesn't really sit right on a person. I didn't really think about this when I was drafting it, but when you actually wear it, this top edge wants to flip the other way for some reason. That's why I added some visible interlining here, but I think this is actually due to just the way I drafted it. Also, the straps fall off your shoulders, but I guess this is just normal for a summer dress. But also, of course, every skirt that I make has pockets, so those have to. Even the first one has pockets, even though it's not supposed to, and it's gaping because of the pocket, but I'm not going to sacrifice a pocket if I'm going to wear this skirt every day. So that dress was actually the last project I made before starting this channel, and in September I started working on those combinations, and the video from these combinations was up at the beginning of October. And well, I'm not going to talk too much about the things that have actually videos on this channel, because this video is too long anyways. But as I mentioned in the video, a pair of combination, I didn't think that it would take so much time for me to make, but because my plan was to sew it by mostly by machine and then finish it by hand, but that didn't work out. So this is entirely hand sewn. I mean, I guess it's something to be proud of, because then most of my hand sewing I learned while doing these combinations. I learned how to do buttonholes, how to finish up the raw edges and stuff like this, because I don't think actually the first dress nothing is finishing on the inside. It's a nightmare on the inside. On the later things, one has the waistcoat has a lining, the black skirt. I think it's the seams are finished with a zigzag stitch, and The summer dress is, I think, not finished because I did a one seam with a zigzag stitch and it was itchy because of that. I'm not sure why, but the summer skirt is not finished. So after combinations I made my yellow skirt, yes. And to be honest, I think this yellow skirt is, for now, I think this is the best thing I sewed for like everyday wear, because I think the corset would have to take the first place, just because it's an entirely different thing for me, and I think the corsets are more complicated. But this, I'm very proud of this skirt. The thing that I'm the most proud of, I think, are those pockets, because they actually lay pretty nicely, they don't gape and things like this. I actually, this is the garment that I learned that you should probably top stitch your pockets to the seam allowance so they lay nicely and stuff like this. But overall, I think the skirt turned out good, because most of the stuff I had to do for the skirt I already knew how to do. The only thing that I think could be fixed, but I don't think I'm actually going to do this, is adding a hook and eye here on the front part, because it's gaping a bit, but then again I don't know if it wouldn't sit weirdly if I did that. Also, whilst I didn't know what bibs are when I was sewing this skirt, I actually learned this word when I was making a voiceover, and then I just and then I heard Rachel use it in her video, and I was, okay, so this is an actual word. Okay, I've never heard the word bibs before in the skirt. I don't know why, just never appeared in front of my eyes. So that's the skirt. I mean, aside from the sewing projects, I made a basket from pine needles, because I thought this would be an interesting craft, so there's also a video about the basket. And the most recent one, the corset. There's not a lot of to talk about the corset, because I think I said most of what I wanted to say in the actual video. But I mean, this corset was just pretty much everything was new. I've never bind the edges before this. I've never sewed bowing channels, basques and things like this. A surprising thing is that it turns out that getting materials for corsets in Poland is unnecessarily difficult. I really had to search for basques, and mostly basque. For example, for some reason nobody in Poland know what basques are. So that was interesting. I also sewed hooks and eyes for the first time. I added eyelids for the first time. Just overall, this corset was a first when it comes to project like that. And I think I want, some different things I learned from making these videos, aside from sewing stuff, is definitely editing. I'm actually proud of my editing. I think as for a complete beginner, it's okay. I mean, I'm not really that good at planning what I'm going to say with voiceover because I do my editing sort of like, I just film everything that I think will be useful. I edit a little bit of this, plan out what is going to be next, and then do a little bit of voiceover, do a little bit of editing, do a little bit of voiceover, and stuff like this. So what I'm going to actually say in the video isn't really planned. Like, for example, this video I didn't plan. The only thing I knew I knew I'm going to say is that it's basically walk you through my projects, but I'm only filming this half an hour, and I didn't thought that I made enough stuff to talk about it for half an hour. And I think the biggest improvement is my English because the first video, oh god, forming sentences in the first video is just so bad. I knew it was going to be bad, but when I was making the subtitles for this video, oh, it was just terrifying. Making English subtitles was such a pain because I think you can tell what I'm talking about, but it's not formed in any logical sentences, and the overuse of the word so, not so as sewing, but so as, I mean, you get it, I think. Gosh, I almost switched to Polish right now. I don't know why. Okay. Oh, why did I do this? No, I don't remember what sentence I wanted to say. Doing English subtitles were bad, but the Polish subtitles, those were terrifying. But for example, now I'm talking for half an hour in English, and you can actually sort of tell what I'm talking about, and I'm forming actual sentences. That's a big improvement, I think, because I can actually speak English fluently, but because I don't speak it on an everyday basis, that's why the first video was so bad when it comes to English. So I think I should wrap up this video because this is already really long, and I don't know if I have enough space on the phone for this video. So if this doesn't save, I don't know what I'm going to do. So bye. I don't know, subscribe, click a like. There's a little boom on this channel after the corset video, so hi to everyone that is new here. I probably should have said that at the beginning of the video, but goodbye. I hope I see you in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed and enjoy videos that are already on this channel. Bye. I just ended this video, and gosh, I was just so terrified because for some reason this is not the phone that I usually use, and it saved the last bit of the video in like a separate file, and I just thought that nothing from this whole talk actually was saved, and gosh, that was terrifying.